Knowing that there's still a coolant inside the heater core, I'm just going to do what I can to try and dump it out now so it's easier to work with. At last we can see our prize. Right in here is the blower motor. That's what we're here to get. And it was all the way in there. I mean, all the way in there, back towards the firewall. But this is the entire HVAC assembly. This basically moves all the air throughout the vehicle. It comes in here, but then also it's redirected, like say to the defrost vents, and then there's fresh air recirculate. There's all these little doors on the outside that work these little levers that open and close things for the operation of this system. There's the transistor assembly. You don't have to do this when you got this out. Not that it's not easy to do, but if you need to replace the transistor assembly, it's right down in here. But now let's get to the business of getting the blower motor out. But then also, over here is my evaporator assembly with my expansion valve that I'm also going to be going after. Really all you need is a flathead screwdriver and a screw gun for the most part. And a lot of patience. You have to, go about this methodically. But I'm gonna go for the blower motor first. This will help me keep track of all my screws that I'm removing so they don't come up missing. Just gonna start with the screws. There's that stud that was sticking through the firewall. It's a good idea to study stuff before you start taking it apart. Despite my efforts to clean out the heater core, I'm still having stuff leak out, so I've got my paper towels handy. And it looks like there's also a fastener with a bracket here for the heater core. Now there's all kinds of motors and things, and I don't want to change their location. I don't want to mess up the adjustment. And I think I can just remove this motor assembly if I'm careful. There's a couple of screws. Yeah, as you can see, that just comes out like that, the lost screw. In an effort to try and keep all these things organized, I'm just gonna roughly put them back to where they went to make finding them when I reinstall them that much easier. Here's another fresh air recirculate function, I think, here that motor controls. There's that. I'm going to try to lay it in such a way to where I know how it goes on. And there's another screw that they didn't give me access to, like way down here. I can pull that out just enough now that I've done that. Now it looks like in order to split this part, there's another screw down here. All these screws are the same length, and that's a really good thing. And we are trying to get it inside here also. It's amazing the obstacles they put in your way. All right, here's another motor I'm intent on removing. This, I believe, is like the evaporator temperature sensor. Oh, good. I don't have to jack around with it too much. I can just push it over, like push this off the arm, and out it comes. Let's get this vent off. There's just one screw holding it down in the middle there. I'm going to try to take this whole piece off here on the side. My evaporator temperature sensor. Looks like this right here is holding me up. I'm trying to leave myself little breadcrumbs so that I know when I go to get back in here for the evaporator. Yep, there it is. That'd be the heater core. Now this plastic piece right here. Seems to be clipped on. I'm not gonna fight with it. I think I'm just gonna have to take all the clips off and get this whole bottom off. Now this is what the flathead screwdriver's for these clips. You can just stick it in one side, pull back, and it pops these open. And they're, well, everywhere. These bushings keep falling out and it scares me. It scares me quite a bit. I've got to be sure to get these back where they're supposed to go. Everything I put back together I have to check and triple check and make sure that it all goes back together. I'm trying to minimize the stuff that I'm taking apart here, but it's useless. It's bad enough you got to take the car apart. This is the actual connector that goes to the blower motor. I've never taken these off before. The only reason I'm doing it now is to get to that evaporator. Now with the relay out of the way, I can see one more clip down in here that's sort of hidden. I think we're making progress. This whole thing's about to lift up off of here. Problem is that for whatever reason, maybe there isn't a problem. Now I remove this in this manner for a very specific reason. These will only go on one way. The adjustment will stay the same by doing it this way. Now I just got to get that out of there, that out of there, and sort of set that aside and cross my fingers I can get it back in there how it's supposed to be. Finally. All right, we're going to set this part aside for now. It's kind of cool. This is your blend door, I believe. This is what's going to open and close whether you're getting heat or whether you're getting AC, because the evaporator is sitting in here, which you can see there. Here is our evaporator. Might as well just take her right on up out of here so we can perform a nice cleaning on this thing. I don't see any oil or anything on it, which would indicate there's a possible leak. But here's my expansion valve, and that's what I'll be replacing here today also. But I want to be real careful of these fins because that helps with the efficiency of this. There's a little bit of mold here, so I'm actually thinking about spraying it with some of that condenser cleaner stuff that I used in another video. It's the same evaporator cleaner stuff I've used before. Or condenser cleaner stuff that I've used in the past. Let's see how well it works on this. Well, while the evaporator is getting cleaned, I might as well clean the inside of the case here. Just do a quick little vacuum. This is blower motor out of here. I am going to go back in and be a little more thorough with my cleaning. Looks like we're partway there on the blower motor removal. Yay! All that work, all that stuff out of the car for that right there. Which is why I would advocate that if you are going to go through the trouble to do this job, I know it's more money, but I would recommend you use an OE part. And the reason being, because this is what you got to do to get to it. And it's just kind of redonkulous. But this is why I made this video, because I know these go bad. And I know people are going to have to get in here and do this if they want the heat to work, the defrost to work. In fact, I remember in Pennsylvania, if your defroster didn't work, you did not pass inspection. There we are. Ta-da! This is the other side of that transistor assembly. This is what controls blower speed. So if you're needing to replace that, that's what it looks like. They put it in the airstream here so that it gets some airflow past it because it needs to stay cool. It does heat up during its operation. All right, I need to go grab my new blower motor and my impact because we're going to have to swap these are called squirrel cages. Going to have to swap these from one unit to the other. You can see the evaporator is full of gunk, mold, all kinds of junk. In fact, in the days before cabin air filters, evaporators did get this yucky. And because of odors that would sometimes exist in the HVAC, because of mold that would grow on these things, we'd have to go in there and clean these. Now, I've never cleaned it using this cleaner before, but I had this cleaner and, you know, I figured I would give it a try. But yeah, that there is some nasty stuff. And by the way, it's biodegradable. Don't worry about it going down my sink drain because it's not harmful. Here's our part number for the blower motor, should you need it. Squirrel cages are the same size, but they're held in place by a 10mm nut on both sides. You have to do a little wiggling to get it off. And there may be a washer. Here's one thing to remember though. One side goes on like this, and the other side goes on the opposite. They're both the same, but one's got to go on this way and one's got to go on this way. Yeah, there's that washer I spoke of you're going to need. Who cares? You're replacing it. One more washer. Don't forget the washer. But that's it. Now we know this is good, but for how much longer? And I think it worked well for the purposes of making this video. And you can see it's already starting to crack down in there. So I don't feel bad about replacing this because this, as you look, there's junk coming out of it. Crushed pepper on your salad, sir? Yeah, this was not long for this world. You want to play with the bubble wrap while I do the rest of the video? Here you go. Our new assembly. Got little nubs on it to protect the threads. But before I put on the squirrel cage, I'm gonna clean out these with some compressed air. So I'm gonna take these over to the compressor, hit them with a little compressed air and knock some of the dust out of there. And I'm going to see if I have any deodorizer. I'm actually going to coat these with some deodorizer because they'll send that throughout the whole system. Washer goes on first. And this one, we can tell this one was on the motor side. Why? Because it's got all that black stuff in it. Look what this one's got. This one's got nothing, so this one's on the opposite side. Not that it really matters, but the top of this is shanked in such a way to where this motor only goes on one way. or the squirrel cage can only go on one way, as you can see. So you gotta line it up. Now don't yell at me, but I'm doing it. Washer. There we go. Make sure it spins. I dare say that moves nicely. Here's some odor eliminator stuff. It's for smoke or whatever. There's really very little left. I'm just gonna lightly, yeah. Actually, I'm gonna pretend, I'll make spray noises. Because this can is empty. Bye-bye. I'm gonna go spray it with some cleaner. That's what I'll do. I'll be back. All right, well, I hit it with some lemon-scented cleaner, we'll call it. And don't worry that it's still got moisture on it now, because probably by the time I get this all back in the car, it'll be evaporated. But I did make an attempt there. There are locator pins for this, and with good reason. Because if you don't get this in there correctly, it won't be able to move air properly. So note the locator pins. And as I often say, when putting things back together, don't tighten everything down until you've got all your fasteners in place. One final rotation. This is to make sure you're not hitting anything, or it's not, the shaft isn't bent or something weird like that. And this rubber boot is going to have to be someplace in here, because this is what actually cools the motor. So it'll take a feed from someplace in the HVAC and redirect it back towards the motor to help cool it. There's a slot in the side here for where the pigtail for the motor comes through. And there's that. You know what we'll do for you? Because I like you, this is what we'll do. I'll be right back. Kind of works awesome. So we know our efforts are not in vain. I did that just for you. All right, now I'm gonna mate the two halves together again. This upper and lower half. There isn't as much junk in here. Seems pretty good. Oh, there's the inlet for the blower motor. So when we put this on, we want to try to make sure that we get that little rubber thing there, because that's what's gonna draw in the air to help cool the motor. Looks like it's got to go in like this. You can see down in here where I reinstalled that little end there so that the blower motor can get fresh air. Now before we go slamming everything together, just make sure that it's all fitting together nicely. I'll run a couple screws in. Before I tighten everything down, I need to make sure that all the doors move like they should. Pine needles. There were a lot of pine needles in this. Pine needles and Diet Coke, that's what held my Vigor together. Aha. That's not moving right. I need to get that in a different position. Now it's moving. All right, doors all move. Spin the blower motor again now that the case is together and make sure it's not hitting anything. Working good. This can come around here, clip into there. We're done with this part. Let's get that expansion valve swapped out. Some ugly stuff has come out of our evaporator. Now it's time to rinse it off. Looks a lot better than when I started. What do you think? A little compressed air to get the rest of it out? Here's my new expansion valve. This is the part number. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, this is actually for a 2.5 TL, not for an Acura Vigor. The part is no longer available for an Acura Vigor, as far as I could find. So this is the one that I'm going to attempt to install. And when I say attempt, I mean exactly that. I want to actually get this covering off the old expansion valve, expose it, and make sure that it's even possible to do what I'm about to attempt to do here. And I'm going to try to put as much of this back as I can, because they put it there from the factory for a reason. And now there's a sensing bulb underneath here. Very careful with this, okay? Very, very careful in order to get down to it. As you can see, I've sort of painstakingly peeled as much of this stuff away as I could. And before I disturb this too much, I just want to get a look at my new part, just to make sure that it's going to be what I need. So far, it's looking pretty good. Except, I don't know. Yeah, except that this has a slightly different bend here. That's the only thing. Also, yeah, I can't use it. Look. See the size of that? So I cannot use this expansion valve. I'm going to have to send it back. This has a larger opening than this over here. Now that I know that, you cannot use the 2.5 TL expansion valve for the Acura Vigor. So I'm very glad I didn't break any fittings loose or anything before I did this. Now I can just do my best to restore this covering, and everything should go back. It wasn't leaking. I don't see any signs of leaking. I've got my fingers crossed that it actually operates properly, but we're just going to do our best to try to cover this back up. All right, now I've done my best to try and rewrap this same stuff over the top here, and I just took electrical tape and wrapped it around the outside of it to try to put it back together, but I believe it'll hold it in place and do what it was meant to do, which is keep moisture off of it and keep any kind of dirt or intrusion away. But just the mere fact that the evaporator is cleaned, I think is going to go a long way towards helping. It would have been nice to have a new expansion valve, but you know what? It's about all I can do for now. So I really hope that's not bad, because as I said, I couldn't find one. All right, we'll start putting our evaporator back in its little home. Cut a couple of these fins. I don't see a whole lot of dirt down in here. The doors move, and that's the important part. Mate these two back together. Ah, yes. There's this bar here. Ooh. That felt like progress. Now before screws, I'm going to start with the clips, just to get a couple of those in, hold the assembly together, and they just push on as I just showed. Door moves, door moves, door moves, door moves, door moves, door moves, door moves. Give a grab to all the stuff on the outside. Make sure it moves. Because if you go to hit a button like defrost or something and you don't have it, you will be sorry. This piece of plastic was in here in a very tricky way. Looks like it goes in like this. That's why it was such a pain. That's a tricky piece. It slides in two different ways at once. Brilliant, guys, brilliant. Right, well, this was the tricky motor, wasn't it? And here we have one of those bushings that would fall off. All right, with some careful off-camera positioning, this is what I've found. You can sort of see, but these clip on like so, and the motor comes in here like this, which I'm going to wait. I'm going to run the screws down, but these can just clip into place now that we have them there. This one's in, it has its bushing, it's all good. Let's cruise to the other side and get that motor on. Looks like there's a screw sort of down in here I want to try to get before I start putting stuff in front of it. This one was in here and over here. I know it goes into that one, and it looks like this one. Looks like it goes onto those too. Loosen that screw ever so slightly. And some of you I know are asking me, Eric, how come you aren't greasing those up again? People are so critical of my work sometimes. Yeah, I'll hit that one on the other side too. Looks as though everything's in place. Got our cover for the top of the heater core. Yep. Let's get that screw down in there. There's one way down in there. Fits in between everything. Now we better make sure we got this in the right place for our motor. Got it. Everybody's hooked up. Everybody's happy. Okay, put your probe. Goes in now. You can take pictures along the way, and it will certainly help in situations like this where you've got a lot of little pieces that have to go together a certain way. Wire tucks up under here. I got another one of these clips left over too that goes somewhere. Got this cover, goes in here, held on by one screw. Found this inside the car. It actually clips on here. I was looking at this thing and I'm like, there's something kind of missing here. Well, it was that. That helps hold that rod in place. Aha. And all this goes a long way to make sure that everything in here is airtight. Airtight is good in your HVAC, or as close to it as you can muster. Like it was made to go there. That, I believe, is a completed HVAC assembly. I'm going to reach down inside here and spin the motor one last time. Make sure that it moves freely. It does. I'm out of parts. One thing before I'm going to put this through the dash, since I did take the evaporator out, I'm going to replace those O-rings. I also got an O-ring kit, and those are still inside the vehicle. This is the connection to the evaporator that goes out into the vehicle here. And because I've disconnected it, and I have an O-ring kit, I am going to swap these out. I'm going to get a different tool to do it though. There's one, and there's the second one. But here's the O-ring kit. I've already used a couple of them out of here. Here's the old O-rings. I'm just going to match them up, and then I'll take a little bit of refrigerant oil and just sort of rub them on them before I install them. I now have two new O-rings, lightly lubricated with refrigerant oil, and ready to go.